Our featured speaker today first contacted me back in October saying she was kind of interested in doing something similar to what we were doing in Houston, up in Kansas City, and we've been on the phone ever since, like, yeah, constantly. And she's done a magnificent job building a tremendous community up there that launched on the first Sunday in April. This year they had like over 120 people at your first weekly gathering, and already we're finding ways to work together so that the movement becomes stronger with more communities, and there are synergies developing and more exciting stuff that you're going to be hearing about. We've been working all weekend long, and Helen will share some of that with you today. So I think she'll talk more about her life and her talks. I won't do the whole traditional bio thing, but we're excited that the executive director of Kansas City Oasis is with us today. Let's give a warm welcome to Helen Stringer.
Thank you.
I don't want to have any barriers between you and me. Okay. I'd like for you to meet a few Kansas City Oasians. This is Stacy. Am I going to get feedback if I get close? This is Stacy Leonard. She shared with me that my husband and I are new to Kansas City. I've been really struggling to find a place for myself. I almost cried during the meeting today because I finally feel like I have somewhere to belong. This is Mark Dixon from Overland Park, Kansas. What I really like about Oasis is that while we have one common interest, building a community that's not faith-based, when you look past that, we're all so different. I enjoy and am challenged by meeting and developing friendships with people who I would never have met in my other more homogenous social circles. Oasis has helped me grow as a human. This is Sarah Israel. I went to Nazarene Church for years. Years ago, I never felt so genuinely accepted there as I do at Oasis from day one, and I don't feel Oasis would ever abandon me the way the church did when they judged my life decisions. So today, I want to share with you about myself, because I'm sure you're all curious, who's this random girl who very quickly threw something together in Kansas City, and what's crazy is that people show up. I still think it's crazy people show up. I'm glad. So I'll share something about myself. I'm going to talk to you about Kansas City, what we're doing there, kind of what we've done in the very short amount of time that we've been around. And then I'm also going to kind of paint a little bit of the picture of where we go from here and what's going to be next. This is me. No. I'm not sure how old I am. So I grew up in a pretty, I say secular home in the grand scheme of things. I grew up in Missouri. Those of you who don't know, Kansas City, most of the population kind of resides on the Missouri side. I'm a Missourian of the Missouri of Missouri. I like Missouri. It's grown on me a lot. So as a child, I grew up in what I kind of consider a secular home, compared to other people's stories of growing up in very, strong religious homes. My parents were really big into education. Most of the people on my dad's side of the family have a PhD, so it was just expected that you use critical thinking, that I don't ever remember my parents talking about God. It never even was really a subject. We went occasionally. We went Disciples of Christ for a period of time, then Presbyterian. But it really wasn't a big deal. So I had a pretty darn good childhood. I really can't complain. But when I was 15, I started going to a youth group at the Presbyterian Church. And who remembers AOL Instant Messaging? Which was really all you really did on the internet at that time, because if you were going to search, you were making a commitment to the next page you were going on. So I was instant messaging with a friend, and out of nowhere she's like, you know what, have you ever accepted Jesus Christ into your life? And I was like, well, no, She's like, this is what you need to do. And it wasn't a hell factor at all. And I was like, well, maybe I should do this. So she literally walked me through the sinner's prayer over instant messaging. So I am a product of it. It's kind of a failed product in a way, of AOL evangelism. So So before I was saved, this is a picture of me before. Okay, it's scary, right? And this is me after. So it didn't really change much. I was not a bad kid. It wasn't like, oh, now I'm not gonna do drugs or smoke or drink. I really at that time thought that being a Christian was probably the best way to be a human. I would say it's a level of like 15-year-old ideology of humanism. But I thought that Christianity was the way to do it, that Jesus was this example of this really great person who cared about all people and wanted to help others. And that was really what kind of drew me into the first steps of Christianity. And it wasn't until I met my husband, and this is a picture of us. This is embarrassing to him. He has a Bugs Bunny tie on. It's pretty awkward. And he's bald now. He totally shaves his head. He lost all the hair, and it is a bowl haircut. So I met my husband. My husband grew up in a fundamentalist household, Assemblies of God, and we have very different childhoods, just drastically different. But we'd known each other since 6th grade, but we were not friends. We don't have the cute little middle school story. We actually did not like each other. I hated him, to be quite frank. It wasn't until my senior year we were in a musical together, and he used to trail me around smelling my hair. It was really creepy. I don't recommend anyone to do that to win a girl. He just got really lucky, and maybe I was foolish. But eventually he got convinced me to give him a ride home from the musical, and I obliged him. We started talking, got to know each other. But so I was going to Presbyterian youth group at that time, and of course he had his Assemblies of God thing. And I brought him to my youth group first, actually, and we had a moment of meditation on scripture, and we were sitting in a circle, and they turned out the lights, and you could see the look of horror on his face, because we were meditating. So if you come out of any of the more conservative circles, you understand that just saying the word meditate or yoga is that of the devil. So he did the only right thing and brought me to his church, where the real truth was. And the first time I went, if you don't know the Assemblies of God, they're Pentecostal, so that means that you have tongues and some other interesting, strange evidence of the Holy Spirit, of course. The first time I went, I remember being really kind of creeped out, but I brought a friend back the next time because it was really entertaining. I was like, you gotta see this crowd. I got people saying weird things and then someone else thinking that they're interpreting it. I'm like, this is a good show. Eventually they won me over though. They were incredibly warm and welcoming. And I can still say to this day, my experience with a lot of the Assembly of God churches is that they are really, really great at welcoming in new people, making you feel like you belong in their diversity. I guess that's the nicest way I can coin it. He's the one who kind of drew me into the real deep religion. When it was time to look at colleges, I considered lots of options. At that time, I was going to school to be an opera singer. I don't do it, I don't sing anymore, I don't do any of that, but I got a really awesome scholarship up in Minneapolis at North Central University. And that's actually our campus. There's a little pointer thing in here, right? Anyways, this is half of our campus at North Central University in Minneapolis. Literally within walking distance, I worked within the skyscrapers. Metrodome's like right behind, what used to be the Metrodome. So they offered me this great scholarship, and I went. And I was a music major for about the first year and a half. Now this school is incredibly conservative, so much so that boys don't go on the girls' dorm rooms, and you have to stay in the dorms too. They had some apartments that were on campus, but they did their best to control most of what we did. Gosh, I can go on and on. You weren't allowed to, no rated R movies, obviously no drinking. We had a really early curfew. It was very, very strict. I will admit I still had a lot of fun. I guess you don't have to have alcohol and other stuff to have a good college experience, but one of the things, we had to go to chapel every day of the week. And my husband, actually, my now husband, Larry, followed me up there for the first year and a half, and the only reason he left, one was money, and the other one was because he overskipped chapel too many times, and that actually got him kicked out. So, yeah. So college, my college experience, I ended up deciding to, they really pushed hard that everyone should be in ministry, and that, we're all, meant to help other people come to know Christ. And eventually I felt compelled to go ahead and just change my major. I was a youth major, then I was an evangelism major, and then I landed in pastoral studies. At that time, and Minneapolis is pretty progressive for the Assemblies of God, I really thought that they were going to given me opportunities to maybe actually be a lead pastor rather than just children's pastors. But that really wasn't the case. And in reality, I ended up going to a Baptist church while I was up in Minneapolis, went to Greg Boyd's church. If there's any theology people, it's one of the big open theism people. But it never really stuck around with the Assemblies of God. I had a really hard time believing that you had to speak in tongues to have evidence of the Holy Spirit, which all of us, all of it's nonsense, so who cares anyways? But I couldn't buy into that. I wasn't about to tell people that they needed to, do that. They thought Billy Graham was lacking because he didn't speak in tongues. And I'm like, really, guys? But what ended up happening is left school, got married, moved to Nashville, and my husband and I have always been one to, like to question things and are really into research, love apologetics, and it just started to become like this slow unraveling of the things that we thought we believed. It was not an event, and I feel like that's a pretty common theme I hear when I hear people talk about leaving religion. But it just slowly started to unravel, so much so that little pieces kind of pulled out, and eventually kind of led to an idea that maybe all people end up going to heaven, and very, very watered down kind of Christianity. So this was the beginning of my marriage. We were kind of going through this journey together. Went to church the entire time. We were very heavily involved, did youth, did small groups, and we sometimes expressed our doubt to other people. One church did kick us out for it. Or no, they didn't kick us out. They gave us the, well, you can't talk to kids anymore kind of deal. I'm like, well, this is not going to work for us, because we were talking, some youth group had heard us talking about open theism as a possibility, and now we've just confirmed all of their greatest fears, because now I'm doing this. So, whoops. So they were onto something. So by the time we ended up leaving Nashville, we moved up to Kansas City because we wanted to have kids. And if you have kids, you know that it's really helpful when you have family nearby when you start a family. And unlike most other families who end up going into religion once they have kids, we were on our way completely out. While we were just married, no kids, we still went to church. We actually led a small group. We were still pretty involved, but we had huge levels of doubt, and pretty much once our youngest, my oldest is adopted, we adopted him from foster care, and I have a bio kid who's 3, my adopted son is 6. And by the time my bio kid was born, we were done with church. We couldn't, we actually had talked to the pastor about what he thought about homosexuality, and he told us that pretty much, they're welcome, but they can't have a sex life. And that was just like, I can't continue to attend something that is just so incredibly ignorant. And so what we found, is that we had these young children, is that we missed the community. We drastically missed the community. We still had some friends that allowed us to be their token atheist friends, and they still allow us now. What's interesting is that when you come out of religion and you tell people you're an atheist, they claim they already knew, which they already knew we were pretty liberal, but people generally didn't care too much in our circle. They care when you start doing stuff with it. So it's been a little more interesting now that I've gotten directly involved with the movement. But we missed the community, and I didn't at that time really know what to do with that. We ended up attending a conference called ApostaCon in Omaha, Nebraska. Has anyone ever gone? You guys are so far south. So it was actually my first secular conference. And Teresa McBain just got up and talked about community and how valuable it was, and how everyone should be doing what they can to, get involved in the secular movement and to be connected and socially, involved. And I was sitting there and I felt incredibly compelled. And I was like, well, what can I do? I went to school to be a pastor, now I'm an atheist. Dang it. What a waste of $20,000. And I was like, well, then I started to think, so what did I learn in school? Yeah, a whole bunch of biblical stuff, and honestly, I didn't retain a lot of it at this point because I don't think about it much anymore. I'm not one to argue apologetics or anything, it's just not my thing. So what dawned on me is that I learned how to build communities. They taught us how to connect people and what was important. My master's degree is in human services and counseling. And from that also, I kind of had, a knack for, kind of generally being somewhat good with people. Obviously that's for everyone else to judge, not myself necessarily, but I really enjoy being with people and helping others. So I started to entertain the idea and I was like, well, why don't we have, some type of secular church or something like it where people can still connect, because churches, right, they have the monopoly on community. And in our culture, that's how you connect. So we moved to Kansas City, got involved in a church, joined a small group, and that was our whole circle of friends, no one else. So why can't we do that as people who are unaffiliated or non-religious, or even if you're a theist, and you're here, why can't you find a place where you fit? One of the things I do, one of the terms I've used in Kansas City that I think are pretty effective in communicating what we do is that we provide a place for those who don't fit in church, because it gives a more broader perspective, because we have a lot, in Kansas City we have a lot of diversity. We have a few Christians, and then we have people who identify the whole gamut of identifiers that are in the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, and unaffiliated. But as I started to entertain this idea, well, what can I do? So I was like, well, let's make sure that someone hasn't already invented the wheel. So I started to reach out. I reached out to Jerry DeWitt, didn't hear anything. I didn't know much about these people either. It was a Google search kind of deal. I tried to reach out to Greg Epstein and James Croft, to Harvard Humanists. And James Croft, he kind of touched base with me, but he was doing a dissertation and I never heard back from him again. Sunday Assembly, I emailed them. They had no way you could call at that point in time. And I heard something back from them in March when we were launching Oasis in April. I'll tell you more about that later because it's kind of fun. But I couldn't get a hold of anyone, and guess who actually not only responded quickly, but spent a lot of time just talking with me? It was Mike. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. Mike was so kind. Originally it started out with like, well, what are you guys doing? There was not, my initial interest in contacting him was not to start some affiliation kind of thing or to use his name. But as we talked, like my kind of thoughts about how this community should look and how it should work were completely the same with his. He's like, yeah, well, that's kind of what we're doing. And I was like, that's what I agree with that. And what I started to find is that a lot of the values and the things that you guys are doing here that I wanted to do there were completely the same. And just like in wanting to build a community, it's easier to build community and it's going to be more valuable if you have support, right? That's just like a greater level of support system. So I did the nervous thing of asking, like, so you can totally say no? I'm like, I'm just throwing this out there. Have you ever considered, having another, affiliation or location or how that looks? And by golly, you allowed me to do it. So that's kind of like the ground running of if you want to know more about how with the city, you can talk to me. I don't want to bore you on the details of trying to pull all this stuff together. I will say I moved kind of fast. I can't believe that it hasn't been a year yet since I even started planning this stuff, and that I'm standing before you today is really surreal, that I've met and hung out with Mike all this week. It's just been incredible, and then the response in Kansas City has just been just mind-boggling. They're all hanging out right now too, so I hope that's going well. I haven't yet received any texts that are concerning yet. So. A little bit about Kansas City. So, I know you guys are all really smart, but I thought, visual aids help. So, Kansas City, we're smack dab in the heartland of the U.S. Kansas City, like I said, we're a border city. So you have Kansas City, Kansas, you have Kansas City, Missouri, and then we have a whole bunch of suburbs. I think we're around 2.5 million metropolitan area, so we're much smaller than Houston, which I think he said was like 6+ million or so. The city is massive. Kansas City is still a very big city, and it is the largest city, once you leave the metropolitan area. Okay, so when you saw some of the quotes that I shared with you earlier, we have people who are coming. We meet literally downtown Kansas City. So right here would be the downtown area. We meet just like 5, maybe 10 blocks from all the skyscrapers. We have a lot of people from Overland Park, Kansas. This is Johnson County. It's supposed to be one of the best places to live in the entire country if you have children. I don't live there. I live up here in the north. I live near Liberty. But it's we have actually successfully, we have people from all over. So we have people from what we call south of the river, because the river splits the city in half. We've really pulled quite a few people into the fold. This is the building we meet in. We meet actually in a 6th floor loft space. That's an event space. It's very, very cool. It's very different from this setting. We have a top floor like garden deck that you can go out, and we have this so this is the inside. It's very modern, and the windows, although they're beautiful, are a huge challenge production-wise to get see your PowerPoint and such. And this is the view from the rooftop deck that we have access to. You can go up there and it has a garden. Kansas City's really come up in the world. Growing up there, I don't know about you, but sometimes you think the place you grew up was pretty lame. And they've really just grown and developed a whole lot over the years. So a few of the things that we've done in Kansas City so far, we have formed what is our volunteer group. It is the Community Action, Oasis Community Action Team. And just yesterday, they did this. They were cleaning up a park, which I found was cliffside, and so I guess it was a little dangerous. Kansas City's not flat, and as people think like Kansas, they think of like flat. It's very, very hilly. I'm a little jealous that you have beach cleanup, because we are doing random woods off a cliff cleanup. I want to take a picture of that and be like, sorry guys, but this is much more, this sounds a whole lot more appealing. And look at the ocean while you pick up trash. One of the things I did when we first started Kansas City Oasis, I spoke at our opening, our launch, and one of the things I wanted to do was elicit feedback from the people that were attending. Handed out cards and had everyone tell me, I wanted to know what they were hoping to get out of Oasis, some speaker ideas, trying to remember what else, there's one other thing, but once I collected all those cards, we did a group activity too to get people talking to each other, which worked out really well. The resounding thing of what people wanted, this is day one, so this is brand new, people don't have a lot of expectations. Number one thing obviously is probably community. They're like, I just want to meet people that are like-minded or that at least aren't small-minded. Sorry, I don't mean. Can you edit that? I don't want to ever say anything that denigrates religion, because it's not. I want it to be positive. So the thing that was really, really interesting was to hear that everyone just wanted the opportunity to be able to volunteer and help give back to the community. A lot of the opportunities to volunteer in Kansas City are connected to a religious organization. The Kansas City Atheist Coalition, we've encountered all kinds of pushback from just wanting to volunteer with different organizations because you have the atheist, the big bad A word in there. So it was really kind of hard and discouraging to those who were unaffiliated or didn't even want to identify as an atheist to get involved in the community. So it was just this resounding desire to be like, hey, we just help us give an opportunity to volunteer together with other people. So this is one of the things we've done. On our, I don't know if it was our 3rd or 4th gathering, we did a bone marrow registration drive. So we registered 17 new bone marrow donors that day. A lot of the people actually were already registered donors. It's an organization that I'm really passionate about too. I can't wait until, I'm really hoping someone gets selected, to be a bone marrow donor, because it freaking saves a life. I mean, I can't think of anything more rewarding but than to do something, where you get to save a life, but maybe it's great because I love the opportunity to help other people, and so to, on a grander scale, be able to create an opportunity where other people are going to register and then maybe someone's life is saved, a child, it's just, I'm beyond words with it. Social-wise, we've done lots of fun social stuff. We actually can have potlucks because this event space has a kitchen in it, because it was originally this huge open, supposed to be a apartment loft. We actually have a humongous bathtub in the back, and I always joke we're going to do baptisms or something. Do some pastafarian fun stuff, but we aren't, and we're not doing it. And it's just one of those really crazy modern, bathrooms. But so one of our bathrooms, you have this nice conference center. So we just have 2, and they're awkwardly placed. So it's one of the weird challenges we deal with. But one of the bathrooms is a full bathroom with this huge walk-in shower and then a bathtub. I'm sure people are like, where did I go? This was our first potluck. I had been warned, Daryl Ray, so if anyone knows that name, he's in Kansas City and he's been a really great support to me, and he as just a side note, he's like, well, sometimes first potlucks, people don't bring enough food. So you might want to, make sure you try and get people to really come bring food. Well, we had too much food. It was just beyond incredible, and everyone loved it, and they wanted to do it again. It's been summer, so we're waiting till August to do our next one like this. We've had some at people's homes, though. Some other fun things we've done, so before I get to this, we have gotten together. We had Porch Fest, where they had bands on front porches in downtown Kansas City, and people floated around. We had a person whose house was within that. Just a lot of really game nights. This same stuff you guys are doing to an extent. I do plan on copying. Obviously, I'm into copying things, so I plan on copying when I see that things are going really well here. I try to do likewise. All right, the vision for the future. In Kansas City, we are now, so it's only been 4 months. I am hoping we're averaging, I hate to talk numbers, I hated that in church, where they're like, why have we had this many people this week? Yeah. But it's our measure of growth, and since we're a new concept, community, the numbers are interesting, but we've been just a little bit lower in numbers compared to how we opened up. And I see it swinging right back up. We have, depending on the speaker, obviously you probably experienced the same thing. You have a higher influx of people who attend. But we are really just trying to figure out how to become very financially stable. We ran an Indiegogo campaign, which some of you here gave to. Thank you. That is kind of bridging our gap between the weekly giving, and we have some ideas of trying to compel and get that going. But that's our next goal, is to have some level of stability with and a way to forecast the resources, because this all costs money, and I hope that it can grow and be even more grand, and that's going to cost even more money. And so I think that's a reality that I want to see the unaffiliated start to embrace and understand. I'm hoping that within 2 to 3 years, I know you guys are kind of looking at locations, that we can do the same thing, where we have a full-time location that we can probably just lease, that people can use throughout the week for whatever. So one of the big things I would love to see would be a secular AA group in Kansas City. We have some of the smart littered throughout the city, but we don't have a secular AA, and people who are required to go to AA, they have to end up just going to one of the standard ones. So, and AA has created a fully secular program. So I'll do questions later. So I see hands up, so sorry. I also just hope to find more ways to plug people in. So one of my strengths is that I try to see the strengths in other people and to get them plugged in and involved. I have no intention of it being the Helen show, so I even have started to, today I'm not there, I have someone else emceeing, trying to move myself out of the emceeing role, just to where I'm the leader and the organizer of it all. But really, I think I want to see, the people of Kansas City come together and be the ones who are really, the bread and butter to running the whole thing. So the Oasis vision, the grander vision is, so this has taken off. It's been 4 months in Kansas City. People like to say that it's something that I did. I'm a really hard worker, and it took a lot of time and energy. It's taken a lot of work. But I think that the response is just telling to what people are hungry for, and they're hungry for community. Community and social support is one of the #1 things you can do to improve your well-being. You've already heard this. I'm pretty sure he's talked about it. But it's profound. And not only are people hearing the stats finally and understanding that, oh, maybe we do need friends. Maybe my phone is not my friend, We need literal interaction. We can't do without it. One of the studies, which is really interesting, they go across multiple cultures, and these cultures that report very high levels of well-being, what they have in common is incredible social support systems, whether that's family or whether it's friends. They have all that, and as unaffiliated, we're in a church world. Gosh, this is Texas. I feel like Missouri and Kansas is just as behind on things. Sorry, is that insulting to Texas? But I'm sure you've heard some of our news things about Kansas that are a little like, oh my. I shake my head, and then I say, oh, I'm from Missouri. Missouri's not much better with some of that. But my hope is that if there are people who are interested in doing this, then why aren't we creating the opportunity for other people to do that? Make it a little bit easier. Granted, I had your model, but why not, really outline it for people and help them to understand that this is something you can do. We're going to be grassroots. We are a little different than the other options that are out there right now. And if however they want to do it, that's great. I think that we're going to see more communities like this pop up that won't be Oasis in 20, 25 years, and I think that is incredible. Because if it's compelled someone to at least connect and to be, in community with their people, that's the ultimate goal, whether it's an Oasis or it's not. But our hope is that we can start to see other cities like Dallas be able to follow the same model. I had someone approach me from Wichita. I don't know how serious he really is, but people are catching on to this. The Time magazine came out. JT Everhart is actually one of people in Kansas City who used to be one of the pretty negative atheists, if I understand correctly, who's really kind of changed his tune. He still kind of puts content out there that's not exactly warm and fuzzy. But he's even been supportive. And so when I started to kind of go through Kansas City and pitch this, I had my pushback. So, oh, we don't need this. I like sleeping in. And you all know that on Sunday, this is the best time culturally to meet. It's not like we're trying to be total churchy, but in our culture, people have that open time mid-morning, and that's what we do. And so this just makes sense. So my hope is that with you guys, that we can have other Oasis communities, right? Do you guys like this place?
Yeah.
Am I boring you? Okay. I'll start closing this up here. And I think we have time for Q&A. I don't know. Okay, nope, just kidding. I have like 3 minutes and I'll be done. Dang, this is a hard crowd. I want to have you meet a few more Kansas City Oasians. This is Brian Carino. He shared with me that I like celebrating victories. Today I sat with a group of complete strangers. We all didn't know each other at lunch after Oasis. All got to chatting, hit it off, found out we live within 5 miles of each other, and now have a dinner party scheduled. And I will tell you that this group that got together, they're all really good friends now. And that's their group, and those are the people. It's just incredible. Now this is this is probably the mid-25 to 30 group. He might be 24, actually. He's one of our younger ones. This is Fred Heron. Fred Heron is one of my Christians. He's very involved, ironically enough, in the secular community in Kansas City. He shared, I love the fact that my non-churchy friends have a place that offers them community, and I love the fact that they let me be a part of it. He's really great. He's actually been, ironically enough, I'm pretty sure he has more atheist friends than Christian, and he's not trying to convert us. So, because that really, I wouldn't tolerate that very much. This is Cinta Hirschberger from Overland Park, Kansas. I love the chance to connect with old friends and make new ones on a weekly basis. This one I was really, really thrilled with. Some of this I solicited. I was like, tell me about your positive experience with Oasis so I can share it with Houston. And I had to pull harder to get guys to share. I know that's shocking. But ironically enough, the guys gave me these longer explanations of their influence with Oasis. So I'm going to read this. So I'm personally really skeptical of all group, community, get people, organized type deals. I didn't have a good experience with them as a young person, and it became almost a defining part of my personality to reject anything that I associate with groupthink. So I am not going to lie that I was skeptical of Oasis too. Luckily, my curiosity overcame my cynicism because it really has been amazing getting to feel like I'm a part of something that really is a force for good. Oasis has given my boys a community that they can draw ideas, inspiration, and life experience from in a way that I could not have provided without it. That is the whole reason. The whole Sunday thing is great. This is the catalyst for what happens outside of Oasis. And what I want to end with today is I want to say thank you. Because a lot of people, when they have a really great thing, you don't want to share it. You want to protect it. And I know you had to think that there was some risk in letting some other person, use your name and try to do the same thing. And I can't thank you enough for being willing to share this really incredible opportunity to connect with other human beings. It's profound. So thank you all. In Kansas City, I like to tell people, welcome home. And instead, I want to tell you guys, thank you so much for welcoming me into your home.